I wanted to touch on, not to pivot too hard, but we kind of Bill 20 that, and I actually just saw another article about it today, but let's talk about the bill a little bit, and then we'll talk about the article I read. Let me just pull up on Twitter here.
Do you want to know one of the reasons I think they instigated Bill 20? Because I have a theory.
Why is that?
My theory is that when Edmonton last year, so City of Edmonton Council was, in a sense, getting in bed with the feds and saying, let's make an urban national park in Edmonton. And this was happening last year, and then it was passed. So in other words, the City of Edmonton wasn't even considering where the province might stand on this or where Albertans might stand on this. For some reason, they just thought, hey, it's a good idea to have an urban national park. Now, I'm opposed to more national parks because national parks restrict our ability to move about freely. And in some cases, they make us pay money to visit certain areas. And
unless you're a newcomer.
we don't need any more we don't need national parks, period. Never mind urban national parks. And so Edmonton made this deal with the feds. Now, last year, a petition got going, and it's against the development of an urban national park in Edmonton. And that petition got a lot of momentum, over 1,000 signatures, good momentum. Well, that petition eventually ended up in the hands of UCP MLA Brandon Lunty, and he's in the constituency of Beaumont-Leduc. So he presented that petition as a private member's bill in the legislature, and it gained momentum, and the other UCP MLAs supported it. And it passed as Bill 204 on April 15th. Now, I was actually in the legislature on April 8th, and they were doing a reading on the petition. There was some back and forth about the petition. It was very, very good. My favorite moment that day, though, was when the MLA from Lakeland stood up and said, "Axe the tax," and he was talking about the carbon tax. But that was just awesome. So I was in legislature April 8th, and then, of course, this Bill 204 passed on April 15th. So what I'm trying to get at is that whole thing is all about a municipality making a deal with the feds and basically leaving out the province. Municipalities, they fall under the province. They don't fall under the feds. The way municipalities are run, it falls under the province. The province is kind of like the parent in a way, right?
That's right.
The feds are a little further out there. So it's not appropriate for a municipality to bypass the province and make a deal with the feds. It's not right. And so I like various aspects of Bill 20 that we're going to, to me, it's kind of a reminder to municipalities that guess what? Hey, your operations fall under the province, not the feds. Because apparently they need that reminder, especially City of Edmonton Council. So I like Bill 20, and I also love the idea of removing tabulators and electronic voting. Like, let's get that out of there. And that's not just like my personal view. This is the view of Albertans. Albertans have lost a lot of trust in the electoral system. There's just been a lot of weird stuff going on, and sometimes some weird outcomes to elections. Like, we are suspicious. So trust in the system is down. And to get that trust back, we have to go back to paper ballots. There can be no tabulators, no electronic voting. If it's important enough to have an election, well, then it's important enough to do this all by paper and all hand counted. Okay? None of these shortcuts.
Do you offhand know at each poll, at any particular, I'm sure it's different at each polling station based on population, et cetera, but at least in your area, do you know how many tabulators would be at one polling station?
I would assume at least one per polling station, or, well, actually, it might be one per 4, possibly.
Let me find out.
That's a good question. Yeah, I don't trust them. I just want to do away with them.
I was just talking on the phone with somebody from Red Deer earlier in the week, and when after Bill 20 came out, and he was saying that one of their people in their group went as scrutineers to the Red Deer stations, and he said that there was discrepancy in the tabulators, and I just want to get the numbers right. That's what I was asking, because I'm pretty sure he said each machine had or the one machine that they were in question had 10, it was off by 10 or was off by 150. So I wasn't sure if there's 15 tabulators and each was off by 10, or if one was off by 150. But the 150 was the number that was put out there. Now, imagine that's just Red Deer at one polling location. So, okay, so what if that happens all across the province? That's a whole election, right? And you could call it whatever you want, but I think we know what that is.
Well,
I asked your. Go ahead.
I used to be a cashier, okay? And yes, there are these machines that can count cash, right? You can throw a bunch of 20s in a machine and it can count it for you. But I come from a time where I had to count my float manually. We didn't have one of those machines. We counted it manually, and then sometimes you use the machine to double check. Like there's just nothing better than a person checking that piece of paper to make sure it is what it's supposed to be, you know, and you have the right numbers, right? I've served as scrutineer so many times, and they'll say, okay, this ballot reads this, and they hold it up, and I have to see it, and then they mark the sheet, and I watch them mark the sheet, and I'm like, yep. I mean, this is the process. This is how we double check, triple check. I was part of a group, and we had to have a vote on something, and everybody just got a little piece of paper. They voted, and when we sent the votes to be counted, we always sent 2 people, right? It wasn't just one person, it was 2, because you want to have those checks and balances. And then I think there may have been a third overseeing it as well. This is, we can't just give everything up to machines. No. We don't trust machines. I've seen the movies, you've seen the movies. Somebody can program the machine and affect the outcome. So we are not going there.
So I won't get into the weeds on the actual bill of the text itself, but I just got Perplexity here to do a summary. Bill 20, Municipal Affairs Statutes Amendment Act of 2024, introduced by the UCP government. So kind of 5 main points here. The cabinet would be able to remove municipal councillors if deemed to be in the public interest, in quotes, without clear criteria. The cabinet would gain the authority to compel municipalities to amend or repeal local bylaws, such as the neutrality issue there in Westlock. The bill would allow political parties to run candidates in municipal elections in Edmonton and Calgary as I think a pilot program, despite a lack of public support for this change. I don't know about that. So we'll just, again, when you're asking these AI tools, it just pulls from what's available on the internet. So sometimes it kind of injects a little bit of opinion and speculation in there. It would ban the use of electronic vote tabulators in municipal elections, citing concerns about public trust. And this is what I mean by opinion. Though the government could not point to any recent issues, I just talked about one, although I didn't give you any specifics. And the legislation will also overhaul campaign finance rules, reintroducing donations from unions and corporations. That sounds fun. And reducing individual donation limits. That sounds like it favors a certain side. You know, the side that's kind of in bed with the unions. Not mentioning any names, Alberta NDP. But yeah, so that's kind of the main points. And I think, yeah, I agree with you that having just manual, pencil, paper, ballots with manual accounting, that's the way to go. No electronic tabulators, that's fantastic. But the ability for the cabinet to just remove a councillor in the public interest, let's just go back a couple of years when there was Kenny in the COVID cabinet. What if there was a councillor that wasn't going to impose restrictions or lockdowns or 6-foot distancing or anything like that? They could have removed them unilaterally because they were not in the public interest, according to what the cabinet said. So it's a dangerous game we're playing.
You have a point there, but I do want to speak for a moment in favor of the idea of political parties being on the ballots for Edmonton and Calgary. And so why I support that. What I have found in observing the elections in Edmonton and Calgary is it's very difficult to discern values of a candidate. And so there'll be all these names and all these signs, but who really stands for what? And there's a lot of people that they will not take the time to research that candidate. What's the background on that candidate? Do they share my values? Should I elect them? There's so many people, they won't do the homework. And so then they go to the ballot box and they go to vote and they just kind of go, well, oh, I liked her sign, check. Oh, I've seen signs for that person, check. Oh, that name looks familiar, check. And that's how they mark their ballot sometimes. And that really concerns me. It seriously concerns me. it feels like a gamble. Like we might as well just play VLTs if that's the way you're going to vote, because you might as well throw it out the window. If you don't know who you're voting for, you shouldn't vote, really. And so the advantage of putting the political party on the ballot, and I mean, the two big provincial political parties, obviously, are the United Conservative Party and the NDP, right? They're the ones that have the most momentum. But those municipal ballots, they might also have other parties on there. So it might have one of the two main parties, or it might have some other party, right? Like there's alternative conservative parties in Alberta. Or there might be candidates that don't run under any party banner, and they're on the ballot. So when they say you can put your political party on the ballot, they're not saying you have to. You could still run as an independent, and you're not associated with any political party umbrella. So I actually think it's a huge advantage for the voters of Edmonton and Calgary to look at a ballot, and now you got this list of names. So you're going to pick your councillor for your ward, and you're going to pick your mayor, and you're going to go, well, this councillor, this candidate is associated with such and such party. Such and such party somewhat shares my values. I'm going to go with this councillor. And because there are people with conservative values in Edmonton and Calgary, and I know a lot of them are feeling discouraged, because in Edmonton and Calgary, there's been a definite advancement of socialist principles. And some of these voters have come to the point going, why bother? Like, why bother voting? Like, it's just going to move to socialism anyway. Why bother voting? If we put those political parties on the ballot, now they know who to vote for. Because they don't have time to do their research. They don't. They're busy working their jobs. They're trying to pay their bills and pay the carbon tax. So we got to help them. So I'm in favor of political ballot parties on the ballot. The other thing I'm in favor of is do not split the vote. So whether that's at, let's say, the municipal level, provincial, federal, don't split the vote. What you do is you get behind the party or candidate that has the most momentum. So in this case, we're conservatives. We get behind the conservative candidate that has the most momentum for that area, and we support him, period. Even if we don't like him 100%. If he basically has our values and has momentum, that's who we support. Like, so for example, Edmonton, whoever's going to run for mayor, there needs to be one conservative candidate. One. Not three. One. And whoever that's going to be. Okay? Maybe it's someone who was a conservative MLA in the past. Whatever. I don't know. Maybe it's a former conservative MP. It's somebody with momentum and name recognition. And then on the ballot it says he's a conservative and he's associated with such and such conservative party, whatever party that is. So that's what I think needs to happen. And that's going to serve us. That's going to serve our advantage.
So I think you make a fair point there. And I would say to anyone that is going to run independently, if you're not on Team Orange or Team Blue or whatever the case may be in your city or municipality, as we've been talking about through this interview, people don't really get involved. They don't really show up too much. Maybe they show up on election day thinking they're going to do their vote and they just pick because they saw the sign or whatever. It's your job to get yourself out there. You got to, and I guess in as little as obnoxious way as possible, get out into people's faces, like get into their feeds, get yourself out there, get yourself a good campaign marketing team, like get yourself out there. You have to, you absolutely have to, if you're going to have a chance, especially if you don't like either of the parties or whatnot, or the parties on the ballot, and you want to stand up against that just really, really hard. We learned that in the leadership race, that brand recognition does go a long way, right? Regardless of who the candidate is. So you have your work cut out for you, but I would just encourage everybody to really, anybody, just really, if you're going to run, you really got to put the work in and put yourself out there, and don't just be a name on a ballot. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And like name recognition matters so much. So let's just pretend you live in a Dutch community. If you have a Dutch name, that's going to help, Yeah. Name recognition matters. And there's actually things people can do now, even though the election doesn't officially launch. Like you can't file your paperwork to run as a candidate till January 2nd. But there are things you can do now to contribute towards your win. So name recognition is one of those things. Write to your local papers. See if there's some way you can get your name out on even bench ads. So maybe you, obviously, if you're a realtor, well, then your name's going to be out on a lot of bench ads already, right? That'll help if you're going to run for office. get your name out there somehow. Maybe there's a business you run. Maybe you could make a substantial donation to one of the nonprofit groups, and then you make sure that your name and that donation makes it into the media. Pull the strings if you have to, buy an ad if you have to. There's things you can do now to help with the future, so that name recognition already has momentum.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Just going to share this screen here. This is what I read today, published today, May 2nd, 2024.
Yes, I think they're going to dial it back.
Yeah, exactly, because of the backlash, right? So in the face of widespread opposition, the Alberta government says it now plans to amend its contentious Bill 20 to further clarify elements that give Cabinet new unilateral powers to oust a councillor, as well as to repeal or amend local bylaws. Here we have Minister Groucho Marx over here. Bill 20, the Municipal Affairs Statutes Amendment Act 2024, was tabled to the legislature last week, but drew near immediate widespread criticism. Much of the backlash came, and I'm not too familiar with this whole Chestermere situation, but Rick McIver here, as the Minister of Municipal Affairs, did remove the mayor and some council of Chestermere, and that is a bone of contention right now in much of the province. Much of the backlash came in response to those new authorities the government was granting itself, with Edmonton Mayor Amarjeet Sohi describing the legislation as intimidation. I'm no fan of Amarjeet Sohi. Moved away from Edmonton for lots of reasons, him being one of the many. On Thursday, a week after the bill was introduced, Municipal Affairs Minister Groucho Marx issued a statement indicating changes to the legislation were coming. We will be working with the municipalities to propose amendments to this legislation that clarify that this would only be used in very limited circumstances. Of course, you can trust us. We're good people. We'll make the right decision.
Groucho Marx.
Yeah, because of the, obviously because of the, and because he's a friggin' joker. The bill would grant Cabinet, in my opinion, my humble opinion, the bill would grant Cabinet the ability to remove a councillor if Cabinet deemed it to be in the public interest, though it sets out no criteria for how that would be determined, with McIver saying last week it would be decided on a case-by-case basis. Okay, so are you really going to trust this guy or anybody, really? I mean, I have a hard time trusting politicians. I've met that many that I trust. That many. One. And it's not Rick McIver, I'll tell you that much. So
I got mixed feelings about Rick McIver. Like, I wrote him during this plebiscite in Westlock, the whole bylaw neutrality thing, and I said the newly elected mayor is expressing a viewpoint on this. He should be neutral. And Rick McIver wrote me back after the plebiscite was closed, and so it wasn't timely. And he said it's okay for the mayor to express a viewpoint on an issue. And so I'm like, okay, well, where's the neutrality here? Because my understanding is mayor is supposed to be neutral chairman at a meeting. So he's not always supposed to guide it, right? So yeah, no, I got mixed feelings about this. I'm glad they're looking at it again. They're going to rein in the powers. As I said, there's some aspects about Bill 20 I agree with, but I'm glad that they're looking at reining in that section. That's good.
Everybody out there running for council, you heard it from Municipal Affairs Minister Rick McIver via Benita Pedersen here tonight. It's okay if you express your views, your political views. You can have an agenda. You can even financially support an agenda. So that works both ways, guys. Just take note.
I think this is Rick McIver's last term.
Yeah, I certainly hope so.
Move on. He doesn't share our values often enough.
There's going to be a few of them that is their last term. This is one of the things I just really don't understand, and I'm not a politician, thank God, but a lot of the people that are MLAs, not just MLAs, but some in cabinet that were selected and appointed as cabinet ministers of various portfolios are not the best kind of people. And I scratched my head at why those selections were made. And it's not because it was the decision that was right or the best person for the job. It was because, in my opinion, it was politically expedient or it served a political purpose. And that's my take on that.
Let's explore that for a moment. Okay, so we had all these individuals run for the leadership, right? And some of those individuals end up in cabinet. And perhaps the decision to put those individuals in cabinet had something to do with winning those supporters of those individuals. So if all you were into was political strategy, to an extent that makes sense. But I agree with you that when you look at the core values now of Albertans and the values of United Conservative Party members, like it's clear. It came through through the policy submissions from last year, the policy submissions from this year. The policy submissions are already happening. It is clear what the majority of the members of the United Conservative Party want, and our values are clear, and therefore our MLAs and our cabinet ministers need to reflect those values. And right now we have cabinet ministers that are not reflecting those values, so they need to evolve and change very quickly. Or
we'll change them very quickly.
Just step down. Like here's a thought: what if a cabinet minister actually went like this and went, oh, well, I guess the way I've been going isn't the right way. So you got two choices. You can either redirect and say, okay, well, I better listen to the people and go the way they want me to go. Or you can say, well, the people want to go that way, but I don't want to go that way. Maybe I should resign my position as cabinet minister and give someone else an opportunity to step up and serve the people. Hey, maybe at least one of those guys could resign. What do you think of that, TJ?
I think that'd be great, but I think they like the gravy train too much.
Oh, yeah, they do get their benefits, don't they? But we could put some pressure on. We'll see.
That's the one thing. That's the one thing I will say is, you know, the last AGM was fantastic. There's organizations like Take Back Alberta that are really educating the grassroots and the average everyday public on how to engage in their political parties and political systems. And yeah, in a way, like when we talk about the parents' rights issues, in a lot of ways, Danielle Smith's, whether or not she believes in a certain thing or not, her hand was kind of forced. And I just want to remind everybody that is in power right now, look what happened to Jason Kenney. You're not immune from that. So I would actually encourage a whole lot more people. Like we had, what was it, almost 4,000 people at the last AGM for the UCP on a provincial level. If you could double that, you can steer the ship. Like you'll change Alberta. And so, yeah, maybe those cabinet ministers won't step down, but with enough support in the base, they might not have a choice.
Well, obviously Rick McIver's feeling the pressure because he's dialing it back on Bill 20. So they're not giving the province too much power. So, no, that's really good. And we need more people engaged. So Take Back Alberta's been a part of that. There's been other groups that have been pushing the political engagement thing and teaching people how to get engaged. Oh, you buy a membership in the Conservative Party with the most momentum. Oh, you start going to the meeting. Oh, you see if you can join a board. Oh, you talk to your candidate. You talk to your elected representative. Build relationships. That's part of the key there too. Build relationships with your teammates, because these people that you're on a board with or you're in the group with, for all you know, one of those people is going to be a candidate in 3 years and then MLA in 3.5 years. And now you have a relationship with your MLA. How great is that? So people need to get engaged more, and I love the idea of there being 8,000 or 10,000 people at the conference this fall. Oh, that'd be super.